Watertown City Council set to have its final meeting of the year. Here it is Monday, the 15th day of December, and Sarah Pierce, the mayor, is with us to talk about that meeting and talk about the ethics investigation, which has wrapped up as well. So good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Let's start with the ethics investigation, now complete. The board coming back saying there was no clear violations, ethical wrongdoing. Were you surprised at that?
I would say maybe somewhat surprised, but certainly respect the board's findings and thank them for their time and the effort that they put into this process.
You, in the beginning of it, when you made the complaint with two other people on council, quoted as saying that it would be cut and dry, right? To you, it was a little bit more simplistic than perhaps what the Board of Ethics saw. Do you still think it's cut and dry, or has there been an explanation from the Board of Ethics to make you understand why it wasn't cut and dry, or how do you feel on that? Because you were very confident.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when the Board of Ethics looked at this, they looked at it through that very narrow scope of the city's code of ethics. When I look at all of that correspondence that was part of this claim, I do see it as very black and white. A lot of what I see there, sure, some of it is innocuous, but a lot of what I see there, I think, is far beyond the scope of how a council member should be acting and how they should be serving their constituents. I look at different things in that correspondence, for example, responding to a constituent and BCCing a local developer. I don't think that people have that expectation that that would be happening. As residents who might reach out to their council members with concerns, I don't think they expect to have somebody BCC'd on there, and then in certain cases that I've heard about, have that local developer either call or text them about their email or their feelings on things. I think that that's highly inappropriate for an elected official. I also think it's inappropriate for several elected officials to be on an email chain with a developer and have that developer providing them with advice. I think that while these various things may have not violated the city's code of ethics directly, I think that they are less than how a constituent should expect their representative to be acting.
And have you heard from constituents saying that?
I have heard from many constituents saying that and saying, how is this right? How is this acceptable behavior? And people are confused, but I think that the thing to point out is this was looked at under a very narrow scope of the city's code of ethics, which hasn't been updated in decades.
And you're on the record saying that it should be updated, that the code of ethics should be looked at?
I think it should be looked at. I mean, again, there are various things within that correspondence, and also, even beyond that, I hate to belabor this, but going back to the New York State Police investigation that uncovered that those council members had 6,600 points of communication with the developer in question here. Like, that seems entirely inappropriate for me to have all that communication, and then months later the public finds out that that individual got $1.7 million. That's highly inappropriate, and what steps can we take to ensure that that doesn't happen again? I'm more than willing to look into that and see what can be changed.
The state police investigation and this complaint all coming back with nothing. How do you feel about that? Are you embarrassed? Do you think there's egg on your face, or how do you feel with the accusations and none of it coming back with any merit, so to speak?
Do I feel embarrassed? No, not at all, because I hold myself to a very high ethical standard, and I think that when I look at the picture and everything that happened in totality, I think that these individuals did not act in the best interest of the taxpayers. I did what I could to bring that to light. I think that even though technically some rules were not broken, again, they still were not acting in the best interest of the residents and taxpayers. And when I was presented with this information, I took the appropriate steps. When we were presented with the correspondence by our city attorney who said, this looks like it may be something that you want to take a look at and consider forwarding to the Board of Ethics, we took those steps. So no, not at all. I think that I did the right thing, or what I felt was the right thing, and that, I'll continue to have those high ethical standards.
Is the right thing just having those communications out there to show what was in the shadows?
I think that that's part of it. That's part of the transparency and making people aware that this is what went on, because I think for a lot of people in the community, and I continue to hear it, a lot of the decisions and actions by these city council members just don't make sense. And I think by making some of this communication public, it kind of puts the pieces together a little bit. You had a situation where a council member was forwarding even very minor emails on very minor city issues, everything from what the chain of command should be at City Hall to where negotiations stand with one of the city's unions. So basically looking to this individual for advice on trivial to serious matters. If the relationship was that close with this individual, why would these people not have disclosed that during the discussions on whether or not to buy the Watertown Golf Club and other matters involving this individual, such as the non-payment of taxes on his property? So again, I just think that as a whole, a lot of the actions were not up to snuff when it comes to the standards that elected officials should be held to.
Other things I've heard out of the community is this was done just to give the council members a black eye, that it's a vendetta, vindictive. Any of that true?
No, whatsoever. I don't have time for vendettas, quite frankly.
And another thing I've heard, people worried about the cost, and you've talked about that a little bit here, but what did all of this cost the city of Watertown? Do you have an answer on that? And
I don't have a definitive answer at this point, but what I can tell you is there was very minimal involvement from any sort of legal counsel. The Board of Ethics did not have an attorney present during their meetings. I don't even know that this individual would have had an hour of work in. This was done through the volunteer efforts of the Board of Ethics. This was done, I myself wrote the letter to the Board of Ethics. There was no attorney paid to write a letter. So the cost was very minimal. More than happy to make that number public once we're able to.
I was surprised when I learned that there isn't a record taken of the meeting with the Board of Ethics, right? There's no official record. I've heard that from one council member who was accused. Should that be changed as you move forward? Should this stuff be written down on the record?
I know that it was not. I don't believe it was recorded. I don't know if they had somebody who was taking minutes. I would anticipate that they would. I can't give you a yes or no answer on that. I don't know whether they did or did not, but it's something that probably, yes, should happen. So you have a record of it.
Moving into the new year, you have 2 new council members coming in, but with this sort of cloud hanging over, do you think that they'll be super cautious about what they do, or do you still hope that they'll be their individual person who they were elected to be and to be themselves on this council?
I certainly think that they'll be their individual persons. I know both of the people who are coming into office, and I know that they are people who aren't only intelligent, but they also possess quite a bit of integrity, and I'm very optimistic for the new year and a fresh start with these new council members.
Do you expect or hope for disagreements?
I think that disagreements are natural, of course. I would hope that there would be disagreements on issues, but I would hope that, and I think I'm very optimistic and confident that it will be much more respectful. I think the public will see a marked change from what has happened the past 4 or so years to what will happen with the new council. I think they'll see a governing body that disagrees, certainly, on certain issues, but does so with respect.
I don't know which way to go next in terms of the contract with the city manager or to talk about the budget, because the new council will have a tough budget year as you've had the last couple of years. And the reason that I'm thinking about what question next is because the city manager is already tackling some of that stuff. So I guess I'll go with the budget, and that's one of the biggest things, the new council with the 2 new members coming on, and maybe where some of the disagreements will come.
Sure.
As you have those discussions. Where do things stand? We're 6 months out from having a new budget. You may think 6 months a long time, but really in this arena with the problems that are ahead of the city, all the time is needed. And Mr. Wagoner has been working on it more than just beginning now. He's been doing
Sure,
this.
yes.
That's my question. What has been happening behind the scenes?
So I know that working on the budget is a year-round process for the city manager and the department heads. I'm confident that after we wrapped up the last budget, he was right in their offices talking with them, okay, what can we change for next year, that sort of thing. I do know he's been meeting with them obviously more recently to talk about what's to come, what cuts can be made, what changes can be made, and I think that he'll be bringing the council into that process early on in the new year so we can move through the budget process more efficiently, I would have to say. So
Last couple of years have been those eye-popping proposals for tax hikes, right? And they've been brought back down to single digits, but 19, 20%. Any numbers being floated so far, or do you just expect that because some would argue that the can's just kicked down the road and some real change needs to happen?
I think that the previous council, this last budget process, we kind of sent the message that, and I think the community kind of sent the message too, that, double-digit tax increases are not what we want. Certainly, the city manager proposes the budget, and it's on the council to go through and make the kind of cuts that we would like to see and get that number down. I think we'll obviously, continue through a similar process this year. What that number will be right off the bat as proposed, I'm not certain at this point. We'll see.
I can't remember if it was Mr. Garibrand or Mr. Osborne that campaigned on it, but I think it was Mr. Monaco talking about, no, bring us the budget where we don't have to make any of the cuts. Have it come in and that single-digit tax rate increase, not the 20%. Do the work, and it's a different process, a different way of thinking. Some think the council should be the ones doing that, and that's been the process for a long time. So Mr. Wagner comes up with, okay, this is what I got from my budget, from my department heads, and here's where the tax rate is. What does council want to do? Instead of having him make some of the decisions that some would argue the council should be making. Do you see any difference in the process? Do you have one way or the other that you would prefer? Do you prefer the way it is now?
I mean, I think it's fine the way it is now. We were elected to make these sorts of decisions, and I think that it's worked well, at least for the couple of years that I've been in the mayor's seat kind of leading that budget process. I think it's worked fine. Maybe there's some middle ground there where more cuts are made initially off the bat by department heads and the city manager, and there's less work for us to do. But at the end of the day, again, I think that that's what the people elected us to do, was to be the ones to balance the budget, and I see no problem with that.
The feel coming into it with the two new council members is that, the city budget is pretty bare bones. I think that's been made evident. People are aware of that, that maybe there will have to be cuts, attrition possibly. Is that your thinking as well as you're going into this next budget cycle, that it probably is rubber's going to meet the road there?
I think so. We'll have to obviously take a look at everything holistically and see, what the needs of the various departments are. But I think that probably, as you described it, that's how it's going to go.
And with the city manager looking at a resolution tonight on the council meeting for a 2-year contract with Mr. Wagner, and he's been working without a contract up to this point because of the residency issue, or not? Has he had a signed contract?
It's our understanding from what the opinion that we have from the city attorney, that contract is valid, and he has been working with a contract since we passed that residency exemption. So
the new contract to extend his current employment keeps him on for a couple of more years. And what's your assessment of the job that the city manager is doing?
I think he's done an excellent job leading the staff at City Hall. I hear it on an almost near daily basis how fantastic of a leader people think that he is. He's really done a great job of bringing everybody together and have everybody working more cohesively instead of in silos with the various departments. So I think that he's done great in that regard. He's also done a great job of moving forward a lot of these things that may have been on the back burner for the city, especially when it comes to blight, and kind of putting together a plan for addressing that, moving us into the next phase of our refuse program and those services. So a lot of the things that we've talked about for a number of years. He's made them happen and move forward, and I think he's done a great job as city manager.
The contract doesn't require residency, so it continues
Correct.
the current agreement, and it's a two-year deal, and favorable. Mr. Wagoner said that he wants to stay, right?
Yes.
I mean, and have the extension. Do you think this will get voted on tonight? I guess that's another question too.
Well, it will get voted on because it's on the agenda. Whether or not it will pass, I would hope it would pass. We had discussions, as we do with any sort of personnel issue or contract negotiation. We had discussions in executive session about this. Nearly everyone was on board with the contract as it's presented on the agenda, so I would hope that there would be the votes to pass it. If not, I think the council would need to be prepared to pass some sort of extension to his current contract and then have the new council weigh in and possibly adjust the contract accordingly and then vote on it sometime in January.
So the current contract runs through the end of the year, and
Runs through the end of
this
the year,
would
we
pick up.
need to do something
Gotcha.
to extend it.
Gotcha. All right, the meeting tonight happening 7 o'clock, public comment period in the beginning. After this meeting, you do have, what's the ceremony for the new council members? Is that on New Year's
That's going to
Day?
be on New Year's Day at 12 p.m. in the Flower Memorial Library Rotunda. It's open to the public. It will last about an hour. We'll have both new council members sworn in, as well as our city court judge, Mary Doheny. And then we'll have remarks from everybody, and it'll be a nice ceremony. And again, the public is welcome to attend.
And hit the ground running. Meeting tonight, again, 7 o'clock. It is the 15th of December, and final meeting for City Council. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.